So in the previous class, we have an introduction to two-phase locking mechanism. We studied what are the basic functions in two-phase locking. So the basic functions are read lock, then write lock, and unlock. So read lock is actually a shared lock, and while write lock is a mutually exclusive lock. So we can next see what is the ways in which we can use this two-phase locking. So a transaction is said to be follow two-phase locking protocol if all the locking operations precede the first unlock operation in the transaction. So that it says that a particular transaction has to do all the operation before it doing the first unlock operation. So all the data item it requires to be locked must be done before it to do a unlock operation. So such a transaction can be divided into two phases. So always we can see that in the beginning of the transaction always you have some read lock, write lock operations are executed, and some read write operation may be executed, but the unlock operation starts only after all the locking operation. So there will not be any unlock operation, right? That means write or read lock after the first unlock. Okay, so the phases is actually divided into two. That is called as two-phase locking. The first phase is known as growing phase, in which a transaction locks all the data item it requires, and second phase which is called as the shrinking phase. It contain only unlock operations, rewrite operation. There won't be any write lock operation or read lock operation. All the data item that a particular transaction holding will be released in shrinking phase. So since we are using this type of technique, that is a two-phase locking, if lock conversion is allowed, then upgrading of locks, that means suppose you now want to move from read lock to write lock, we have to do it in the expanding phase. And if we are you thinking about downgrading of lock, that is from write lock to read lock, we have to do only in the shrinking phase. And in this example, here you can see we are locking after the unlock operation. In transaction T1 and T2 both have lock operation, that is read lock or write lock after the first unlock. So this scheduling is not in two-phase locking. So we can convert it into two-phase locking by moving some things towards up. So here you can see this is the first figure, is the table which is not satisfying two-phase locking, and here the problem is in the transaction T1 the write lock is happened after the unlock operation. So just we need to move only the write lock before the unlock operation, that is done in T1 dash in the second figure. So here you can see unlock operation comes down after the write lock operation. So now the T1 is currently, you can see it is in two phases, before the first unlock and after the first unlock. Before the first unlock you are doing all the read lock, write lock, and okay, you can do write operation, read operation, write item, read item, okay, but you can't do any unlock before the first unlock. So only after that you can see there is only unlock operation. In T2 also you can see the first figure, there is a problem, the write lock after the first unlock. So we need to convert it into like T2 dash. So serializability by two-phase locking. So it's called as basic two-phase locking. So if every schedule in a transaction follows two-phase locking protocol, the schedule is guaranteed to be serializable. That is, you are holding all the lock before you are going to write or doing the first unlock operation. So in that case, if the transactions are scheduled in a manner, so interleaved manner, you must achieve a serializability in that schedule. So the locking protocol, by enforcing two-phase locking rules, also enforces serializability. Two-phase locking may limit the amount of concurrency that can occur in a schedule, since most of the transactions wait for other to unlock. That means number of transactions that concurrently running will be reduced if you are using two-phase locking, because most of the transactions are currently waiting for other transaction. So this way we can achieve more serializability. Next we are going to see different types of two-phase locking. First one is basic. We already discussed. It is a case where first transaction will won't be lock any data item after the first unlock. That is basic 2PL. So next is conservative 2PL. In requires a transaction to lock all the item it access before transaction begin execution. So in the basic 2PL, we know that while we are trying to lock, we are also doing a write operation as well as read operation. But if you are using this conservative 2PL, its rule is you have to do all the operation before the transaction begins. And next one is 2PL. So strict 2PL, a transaction T does not release any of its write lock until after it commits or abort. So we know that in the basic 2PL, after the growing phase, it starts to unlock all the locks, even though it is a write lock or read lock. But in the case if you are using strict 2PL, the read lock will be released only after the transaction commits or abort. Next one is rigorous 2PL, which also guarantees strict schedule. In this variation, a transaction does not release any of its lock until after it commits or abort. So even though it is read lock or write lock, the unlock will happen only after the commit. So next topic is based on storage structure, and also we need to discuss some recovery mechanisms. So storage structure. University questions this may ask in 3 mark or for 2 mark as 2 mark question. So there are different types of storage structure that can be used in DBMS. The different classes of storage structure are volatile storage, non-volatile storage, and stable storage. So already you know about what do you mean by volatile storage. So information residing in a volatile storage does not usually survive system crash. That is primary memory and the data won't be there after the system restart. So if any crash happened, all the data in the volatile storage will be removed. So while we are actually discussing these details, next based on next slide, actually what type of update that we are basically using in DBMS. So next is non-volatile storage. So non-volatile storage means it will survive the system crash. That means if we are using secondary storage or prime this type of flash memory, etc. So those are volatile storage. Next type of memory is stable storage. Even though if you are using non-volatile storage, if you suppose you are storing only in a hard disk, if the hard disk crashed or something sector failed happened in the hard disk, all the data will be lost. So that's why we are moving to stable storage, in which we are actually creating the copies of our data. So even we are not storing only in a single disk, we are storing in different disks. So if one of the disk failed, we can use the other. So because it contains the duplicate. If that disk failed, we can use other. So theoretically we can say there are n number of disks, and we are storing the data in different hard disk. So same data is stored in different hard disk, but it is theoretically, if possible, we can say it's a stable storage. Suppose in practically, if you have 10 backup, and if the 10 backup fail at the same point, then you can't say you have a stable storage. Okay, so next is log based recovery. So a system maintains a log. So already we discussed system log, which consists of the details regarding the transaction, what all operation the transaction did while it doing its execution. So it starts from indicating the record known as start transaction, and then it will store in the log write item, then read item, as well as at the end we can see there will be a abort or commit records. So in this way we are arranging the log based recovery. So next, based on these two things, we are going to discuss about this database update. Okay, so first of all, there are two types of database update. So database update is mean that suppose you the transaction done some update operation on data item. So in the first class, from I am saying that the there will be an immediate modification, and there will be a delayed modification. So actually it is actually called as deferred database modification. That is, suppose a transaction updated some data item, the updation reflect only in the main memory, and only after certain interval of time the update will be moved into the secondary device or secondary memory. So that type of update is known as deferred database update. So for some minutes the data is updated, is held only inside the main memory, and after few minutes it is actually transferring to the permanent database. Okay, so if some crashes happen, we need to do redo operation. We already discussed that we need to think about whether it is moved back into secondary, the update is actually reflected in the secondary. So the after system crash, when restarted the system, will do again a redo operation. So it actually, if you are using deferred update, um, we don't need to do any undo. Okay, so that we will discuss in next slide. So next type of modification is known as immediate data modification. So in case of immediate data modification, the actual update will be immediately reflected in the database, that is in the secondary device. So the transaction first reflect, the update will be first reflect in primary memory, and immediately it will reflect in the secondary memory too. That type of updation is known as the deferred database, sorry, immediate database modification. So usually we can see this question, that is what do you mean by deferred update, and whether we required undo operation in the deferred update. This is a important question, a 3-mark or 4-mark question came from this question. So I think one or more times it is asked in the university examination. So it actually says that suppose you are using deferred update, okay, then you know that the transaction is complete only if we can say there is a commit operation. Okay, so we know that if after the system crash, we studied in our previous class that after a system crash the transaction will or the DBMS will force through the system log or transaction log, and it will do either undo operation and redo operation. So if a transaction starts and its commit record or abort record are not present in the system log, then we said that we will do undo operation. Okay, that's the first case. And if the second case is that after the crash, after the restart, if the DBMS finds that if transactions already started in the system log or in the system, and its commit or commit action is already recorded in the system log, then we will do redo operation. So there are two types of operation, undo and redo. So undo will do if the transaction start but not committed or no records found regarding commit, and if it will do redo operation if the transaction starts and as well as there is a commit record in the system log. But if we are using deferred update, it says that we no need to do any undo operation, because it's if it's a transaction already started, so okay, that's we can find from the system log, but there is no commit operation. That indicates that the nothing is reflected in the secondary memory, because deferred update, the system will pass the thing only after a few interval after the transaction commit. Okay, so if the transaction is not yet committed, then that indicates we no need to do any undo operation, because there is no partial updation happened in the secondary memory. So a transaction start but not yet committed or aborted, then there will not be any reflection in the secondary memory, only reflected in the primary memory. And you know that after the crash there will not be any data in the primary memory. Okay, so all the updates done by the aborted transaction or non-committed transaction is only reflected in the primary memory before the crash, and after the crash you know that there won't be anything in the primary memory, but we have to do redo operation. Okay, so there won't be any undo operation, you need to do only the redo operation. So that is the thing always asked in the university question. What is the specialty of deferred update? So next thing about a concept known as checkpoint. So checkpoint is actually used to avoid reading all the data in the system transaction log from the beginning. So you know that when we start a DBMS, we have only a single system log or a transaction log, and we are always updating this transaction log. So we know that after a particular enter, all the update from the primary is automatically moved into the secondary memory. So we don't no need to do any redo operation if it is already in the secondary memory. So here we comes the use of checkpoint. So checkpoint is actually avoids or prevent the DBMS system to read from the start of transaction log. So we will always place some checkpoint or a particular command known as checkpoint between the system log. It means that before the checkpoint, all the transaction operations are already moved to the secondary memory. Okay, so all the things before that checkpoint will be in a consistent state. So even there is a crash in the system, no need to look before that checkpoint. So you can place any number of checkpoints in a system log. So in interval of time after moving the data back into the secondary device, we will place a checkpoint in the transaction log. This way, after the crash, after the restart operation, the DBM system only need to check the records after the last checkpoint. So that's the use of checkpoint. Here you can see a figure. Here you can see transaction T1 in while in the middle of the transaction there is a checkpoint, and then we can see T2, T3, T4 start, and the middle of T4 some failure happened, but we will start only from this point. There is a checkpoint, from there only we need to start the redoing operations. Okay, so that is actually meant by checkpoint. So so next is actually in the module you can see we need to study about the advanced DBMS. We already covered this, the big data, semantic web, etc. So that indicates we completed our subject.